Collaborative creation, resisting care system constraints, January 12, 2024, with artist Kennedy Healy and Marley Molkentin.
Hi, everybody. We are just letting folks trickle in and hopefully start 5 minutes after. Okay, I think we're going to start. And as folks come in, we'll let them in. So, hi, everybody. Thanks for coming to join us on this fine cold evening to collaborative creation resisting care system constraints with Kennedy Healy and Marley Molkentin. It's so great to have you. Before we start with the talk, I'm going to do a self-description. So I have black emo bangs with blonde, longer hair coming up past my shoulders. I'm wearing pink headphones, a black turtleneck, and a gray cardigan. And I am in the Tangled office, although behind me it's more of a kitchen. And so we at Tangled, so we want to acknowledge that where I'm coming from and hosting this Zoom meeting, we're operating on unceded land that has been the home of indigenous peoples and nations long before colonial documentation of time. Specifically, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Wendat, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. People who continue to live and work here in what is currently known as Toronto or Takaranto. The land here, made of waterways and lakes, have made it a gathering place for relation, ceremony, and trade across nations. It's home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, as well as the meeting ground for the urban Indigenous Takaranto community. We want to ensure the work we're doing here today and onward honors the original peoples of this land and ensures the spirit of radical decolonialism throughout. Here in Toronto, we're covered under Treaty 13 and we operate under the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt. So this is a treaty between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe. It's a mutual agreement between nations for sharing land and resources. And that importantly, we all have a responsibility to care for this land and those who live here. To honor both the past and living traditional caretakers of this land, we must take a firm stance towards Indigenous sovereignty. And so it's up to all of us, both settler and non-settler, to remain vigilant and understand the context in which we make a land acknowledgement in 2024. Acknowledgement should be the first step into awareness and action. So when we're sitting here together, gathering and discussing disability, we must realize that we are living through a mass disabling event that disproportionately affects the marginalized. Indigenous peoples across Turtle Island are actively facing disabling violence and wrongful imprisonment of water protectors, specifically in opposition to pipelines, face continued constructions of nuclear waste sites adjacent to reclaimed territories that cause long-term health issues, and have also faced the brunt of COVID-19, receiving unsatisfactory government aid despite actively sharing vaccination resources with settler communities. Colonization is actively happening around us as we gather here, both where we live and in the world around us. So we cannot crip, quote unquote, without remaining in conversation with the complex concept of decolonization. And so part of working towards that means being accountable to the systematic relationships we all have with one another in the arts and what power curating stories of our culture and its heritage has. This is the approach we hope to take with Access tonight as well, ensuring that the work of accessibility and decolonization remain in deep relation. We hope everyone participating tonight recognizes the interconnected ways colonization has impacted disability, and that access is an act of resistance. And on that note, I welcome you to take a relaxed performance approach, so to speak, to this artist talk. Take it from your desk, your bed, your floor, the dinner table, whatever capacity allows you to participate. When you ask questions, if you're using the mic, please speak at a conversational pace for both the participants and interpreters, and make sure to speak one at a time. Please DM our access doula, who is Sean Lee, in the chat if you have any questions, concerns, or are having trouble getting Zoom to work for you. All right. And on that note, I'm going to introduce our two speakers today, who I've been lucky enough. This was my first year curating the vitrines at Tangled Art. And these two, I brought them in, and I'm super excited to listen to everything they have to say today. So I'm just going to read off their bios, and then we're going to get started. And so we have Kennedy Healy, she, they pronouns, is a fat, queer, crip writer and media maker. Her work focuses on disability, accessibility, hair, sexuality, media representation, and abolition. They're a founder of Crip Crap, a media company that makes media about disability by and for disabled people. She's a Libra who loves plants, chicken wings, and feminist country music. Follow their work at cripcrapmedia.com or their Instagram. I'll paste these into the chat for both of them as well. And then we have Marley Molkentin, with she, her, is a photographer, videographer, and digital media specialist, currently residing in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She received her BA in multimedia photojournalism and MA in civic media from Columbia College, Chicago. She's passionate about collaborative creative storytelling that fosters education about social justice issues. She's done media work for nonprofits, local political campaigns, grassroots movements, and more. And you can see her work at marleymolkentin.com or at her Instagram, Marley Multimedia. Like I said, I'll paste these below. And their vitrine exhibition, it comprises of some of their photos that we're going to see today, and it's up until January 26th. If you want to come see it, the building at 401 Richmond Street West is open 12 to 5 every day, but also I've pasted a link in the chat. There's so many different ways that you could interact. We do digital tours. We also have a robot that you can control yourself that can come and see the vitrines. And if you have any questions, you can always get in contact with us if you'd like to have a tour in person. And so on that note, hi, Kennedy. Hi, Marley. How are you doing today? We'd love to hear about your project.
Thank you, Jack. Thank you for having us. I'm doing well. Calling in from Chicago. It's also very cold here. And a quick description of myself. I'm a white femme person. I have short brown hair and bangs. And I'm wearing a gray sweater and a striped shirt and a chain necklace. And there are plants and books behind me.
Okay, so I'll go next. I'm Marley. I'm currently residing in Philadelphia, though clearly I used to live in Chicago, nearby Kennedy, because I used to work for them. My description is I am a white woman with long red hair and bangs. I have brown glasses, a gold necklace, and I'm wearing a blue sweater. And behind me is my bedroom with some hanging plants and colorful art on the walls.
Marley, do you want to project the slides?
Yeah, here, sure.
So a little bit of background on our project. Marley was my care worker in 2020 and 2021. At the height of like in Chicago in the US. So like we shot a photo project of our care routine sort of as the vaccine was rolling out here. So I think we both got vaccinated while we were shooting. And we were in like priority groups. And sort of understood it as a way to help folks see care, which is very like not represented in media, not super visible, not super talked about in mainstream circles, and also sort of a critique around the pandemic response and the ways that certain marginalized groups were left behind, like all marginalized groups were left behind. And the state wasn't providing things like PPE and like even before COVID, like livable benefits to me or care workers. So it's sort of layered in that way. And I think so we wrote some of the excerpt we're gonna read in 2022. And I think since then, this stuff has only compounded. We think about like here we've seen abortion overturned at the federal level and like a huge spike in anti-LGBTQ policies, specifically around trans folks and like sports and existing in public. And now we're seeing mass death in Palestine, genocide going on in Palestine, and just the way that these things normalize each other. So we just want to like open by presenting these issues as connected. And, I think about like dealing with something like a pressure sore, which is like a slow state violence that keeps it so like could be cured with proper care and keeps it so that I have less energy to fight against like larger state violence. So just want to like bring all of that into the conversation. Marley, do you want to say a little bit about how you came into this work?
Yeah, this conversation has always felt really hard to boil down into like an hour-long talk or like a page-long excerpt because there's just so many societal structures that need to be unpacked to understand the full story and understand why these circumstances in our care system came to be. Um, Kennedy comes at this from the perspective of a person that's obviously been disabled like their entire life, whereas I'm an able-bodied person. I'm non-disabled. And though I was always very social justice oriented, I don't think that disability and ableism were a huge part of my political understanding, honestly, until the pandemic hit and until I saw Kennedy posting on a local Facebook group saying that they were hiring for a new personal assistant. I had just graduated college in the middle of 2020, May of 2020, and all my job offers fell through, and I was just sitting in Chicago trying to find some kind of work. So found Kennedy's job posting on a Facebook group, and though I had never really done care work for an adult, I worked with a lot of children and done a lot of babysitting. I also did work as an admin person in a nursing home. So I felt like I was a little nervous, but I wanted to do it. I wanted to see if I was going to be cut out for the job. And Kennedy also seemed like a really dope person. It seemed like we aligned. So reached out. Kennedy agreed to take me on and to train me and see how things go. And as I began my care work job with Kennedy, I got into the groove with it. I enjoyed it. Kennedy and I, we started building a relationship, but I just kept learning about the state-funded care system and how it works to be a person receiving those services, and how it works to be a person that is working for the state and is paid to be a care worker. Something like 80% of care workers in the United States are women of color. Something like 40% live in poverty. Um, Care work here is extremely underpaid because of its historical roots as women's work. Our systems have still not caught up to the growing demand specifically for home care workers, as our aging population continues to age and as more people continue to become disabled throughout this COVID-19 pandemic. Um, but the systems haven't caught up and they suck. And as I was doing this job that I really loved, I was frustrated that people my age didn't seem to understand it, felt even grossed out by it when I would tell them what my job was, telling me they thought it was really uncomfortable to help somebody in the restroom or in the shower. And I just became more and more enraged, I guess, as COVID raged on and my young friends were like slowly going back to the bars. And I was like, guys, does nobody understand the concept of ableism? I'm not trying to be a hater because I just learned it too, low key, this year. But I just got very radicalized by being a care worker in the United States state-funded home care system, and especially working for Kennedy, who just put me on just so many authors and disabled creators to just like expand my education on these topics. So I don't know, months into me working for Kennedy, we decided we wanted to take some photos, maybe do some self-portraits of the care routine. I think we were really frustrated and just feeling really helpless. And you had also said this was something you'd always kind of had a vision of doing, but it just all kind of amalgamated into a really horrible time, which was COVID, and kind of a really beautiful time where we just had nothing but time to like sit and learn and talk and create, and try to stay healthy and alive. So we created a self-portrait photo project, just our day-to-day care routine, and gotten published in a couple places now. It's now been in a handful of galleries. We're super proud to be at Tangled, and we'd love to share an excerpt from our full photo essay. Um, so yeah, Kennedy, do you have anything you want to like follow up on before we maybe read our excerpt?
No, I don't think so. I think we'll read it and then we have some photos to show and do we want to talk with folks?
Yeah.
Cool. So it's scripted. So we like recorded a Zoom call and then like refined
Transcribed.
that. Yeah, transcribed and refined that. So we're reading a conversation we had. And if Jack, if you want to drop the disability visibility blog link, this is where it was originally published. If anyone prefers to follow along, we are toward the end of, we're reading an excerpt toward the end, starting with me. The first 3 words are being high risk. Being high risk and receiving in-home care is such a specific pandemic experience to live through. We were sort of each other's pod, and it's been great the ways we've collaborated. Creating the project itself, to me, was a coping mechanism. Would you agree?
Completely. I don't know how seriously we took the idea at first, but then it seemed like more and more of a very real possibility that these photos could actually be vessels for people to understand us and give a fuck about care work and disabled lives during the pandemic. I just think so many things are out of our control, and this was one thing we could control. I can't control COVID, can't control if my roommate might expose me, or if somebody coughs on me at the grocery store, but I can show up with my camera. We can photograph the same stuff that we do every morning and every night and show people what we see and show people the value of what we live.
Yes, and COVID made the project way more raw than something we would have shot pre-pandemic. The stakes were different, and that changed what we wanted to put out there. The intimacy of the photos is a way to take back power that gets stripped from disabled people, often in representation and many other ways.
Care work has always been undervalued, misunderstood, and misrepresented. Media portrayals of disabled life have been overall shitty. Then COVID happened, and there was more coverage about healthcare workers and disabled people, but there was a lack of understanding, empathy, and media portraying the lives of these communities that we should have been prioritizing.
I know that before working with me, you had some disability frameworks, but how did doing this project as your master's thesis while working in care work shift your perspective even more around ableism?
It was unavoidable. Learning about your life, learning your perspectives. You had so much knowledge to pass on to me. You trained me on how to be a care worker, and a big part of that is understanding ableism and power dynamics. You gave me books to read and creators to follow. It became a huge part of my life. Now I just give so much of a fuck about ableism. Every time I would bring this information to my classes, people were shocked. Quote, "Are you serious? Disabled people don't have marriage equality? Disabled people are kept in forced poverty if they receive government services? You don't get any paid sick time?"
In the pandemic,
Every time I would tell my classmates this, my close friends this, my partner this, they were all shocked. It shifted the perspectives of all the people in my life.
you really dove in a way that non-disabled PAs usually don't. That speaks to your personality, commitment, and passion. It's 100% Marley all the time. And yes, people really don't understand care in a political way, even if they care for children, elders, or friends' mental health. Needing help is something we're taught to hide, and the pandemic put a huge magnifying glass to our needs. We can really see how our government wants to either fund violence or fund care and where their priorities lie. It's helped me to start to think about care as an antithesis to violence and the thing we need to end violence of all sorts. In-home care is just one facet of that.
So that's our excerpt, y'all. I can see that we know our story so well. I even low-key repeated some things in my talk about intro earlier. But it's
And
also just fun violence or fun care. I mean, we're just like living that reality right now. It just
it,
compounds.
it's interesting to like read it as it's aged too. 'Cause it's just like I was saying, like, all of that has just been amplified. Um, I think back to how like uh everyone was talking about like the Renaissance, like after COVID would be like over and there would be like a Renaissance, and like Beyonce like tried to declare one, and like we're all just like and it's actually just like feeding itself. So I feel like it's interesting, like how can we like stop and shift that. But we're excited to announce the blog piece is going to be reprinted in an anthology. You can go next slide, Marley.
It's at the end.
That slide's at the end.
Yeah. But
Oh,
I can jump to it.
no, our outline and our slides are off
It's
right
fine.
here.
Here,
But,
I think I can jump to it. Oh no, there it is. We got it.
Alice Wong is coming out with another book called Disability Intimacy. So we just wanted to share the pre-order link in the chat as well. And it's going to be coming out in April. And yeah, we're really excited to see the other pieces in there. And it's definitely a good resource to buy if you're interested in care, reading more about care, love and desire as well, it says. So
Yeah, we're not aware of all the artists that are included in it, but It's called Disability Intimacy: Essays on Care, Love, and Desire, edited by Alice Wong, editor of Disability Visibility, which is a book many of you probably know and have heard of. So we're super honored. Alice was low-key the first person to publish our work on her blog, and the offer to put it in the book was like overwhelmingly amazing. So available April 30th, reorder. Yeah, so we're super excited with how far this project has gone. And we're excited to show you some of the images that we have up at Tangled, as well as a couple images that we've honestly never shared anywhere before. We photographed so much stuff that didn't end up making it into the final piece, but are still really awesome and still tell other pieces of the story and other pieces of our process as artists, and how we came to refine this and like tell the story we truly wanted to tell. So we thought this would be a cool environment to show just a couple sneak things that we really never showed anywhere. So I'm going to advance to a slide that has 3 images on it that are a couple of the images shown at the Tangled vitrines right now. Kennedy, if you want to image describe some of these.
Yeah, so the first image is a close-up of my back in the shower. I'm sitting on like a metal chair. That like, but you can see most of my back and the back of my head, and I have a big scar down the middle of my back, and some fat rolls, and my butt and freckles. And then Marley's hand is like coming in from the left side, and you can see a couple of her tattoos, and she's holding a purple bar of soap. And all the images are on this slide are in a pink glass tiled shower. That's rolling. So the next image zooms out more, and you can see my full naked body, but I'm holding a loofah over my chest, like my arms covering my chest. My catheter is dangling, just like from the top of my pubic hair. It's like hanging down, like out of my body. And then I'm sitting on the same chair from a different angle, and Marley is like holding my left arm in the air and rinsing my armpit. And she is wearing like shower sandals and regular clothes and a mask. And then the last image is the closest up. It's an image of my face, and Marley's hands are like cradling my face in a towel, and my hair and face are wet. She's like drying my face, and I have like a small smile. My eyes are closed. You can see my nose ring in this one, probably the only one. Yeah, so this is the like shower set. I didn't have any photography experience, but like the piece mentioned, Marley was in a master's program for photojournalism and is like more trained in photography, but it was like a fun way for me, because I'm a writer, but like to try to let people into this part of my life, which I'm always trying to explain, and people just cannot like wrap their heads around like how it's part of my day, and like what the work looks like. So yeah, I don't know. Marley, what are you thinking about this set?
I'm thinking that these were kind of our original inspiration for the project, I would say. Like the inspiration for this project all started in the shower, low key, because it's like the longest part of the shift. We're just like in there talking for probably like 40 minutes to an hour, I don't know. And it's also like such a cool shower. I mean, Kennedy lives in like this condo where like they were able to mod it out really cool to be like super accessible, and the shower is just like this soft pink tile. I just felt like immediately very inspired by the visuals of it, but to be honest, was not immediately like, Kennedy, let's take pictures of your shower. Let's take pictures of you in the shower. Honestly, I wasn't thinking that at all. Kennedy was always like, God, this would be such a good photo shoot. I was like, you're so right, but realistically, are we really gonna do that? And it was just kind of like something we talked about lightheartedly. And then at some point during my master's program, it came to the point where I had to decide on a project, and I was originally gonna probably do something that was a resource building tool of some kind for care workers. Because mainly I kind of felt like that was where I could speak from, as someone experiencing what it's like to work for the state-funded care system. I felt like that's what I should build for and speak from. And then the more I chatted with Kennedy about project possibilities and things I was really passionate about, I think we landed on like, let's really try to do this photo project. Like, I think it's doable. You know, I didn't have this big vision of like, let's do photos of lots of different disabled people in their homes receiving home care, because it was COVID. I mean, I even felt wary entering Kennedy's home sometimes, knowing what my roommates' exposures were, etc. So we decided we wanted to do these self-portraits. And we did a lot of planning. We sat down and we wrote out all the different parts of the care routine that we think would be interesting to capture. We created like a big shot list. Um, and I think another reason why we landed on doing a photo project of this nature was had somewhat to do with some of the media theory that I was learning in my program at the time as well. Sometimes people can't understand things or wrap their head around things that they can't imagine, that they can't visualize. And so sometimes media can play this role in helping people imagine things and put visuals to things that they don't understand. In care work in general, especially in the US, often we see images of nursing homes and institutionalized care. You don't really see images of home care. I don't think people in the US have a great conception of what home care really is and what it really looks like. And like I said, I experienced that when I had some odd reactions from other young people to telling them that this was my new job, of people just thinking it's sad, it's weird, it's uncomfortable, you're in someone's house and they're naked and oh, it's so weird. So I just thought, you don't understand what you don't even see. Like the stuff I see every day while I'm just doing my job is beautiful. And even though there's some days when shit sucks, lots of bad days, you know, it was COVID, the world was not doing well, but also I just really wanted to create understanding and value around this thing that we got the privilege to see and experience, and I felt it was important other people saw that. So the images sometimes say what your words can't. Um, and here we are with a big set of images. So should we show more?
Yeah, so this next slide is images we haven't pulled for projects before. The first one is in the bathroom. And so I have a ceiling lift in my bathroom. While I was talking about my remodeled condo in 2019, I was hit in a crosswalk, was already disabled, was minorly injured, but I did get a settlement, and that's how I paid for these kinds of things. Like not something the US government is covering. They're covering genocides instead. I feel like the direct relation right now is just like so if you want to talk about like how issues intersect or like how they're related. So anyway, my ceiling lift is coming up to the bathroom door, which is like a point where we have to transfer. So there's like another strap that we use to transfer me. And like in the Hoyer lift, I hang in a sling. And I'm wearing a towel because I just got out of the shower. It looks like I'm texting or like on my phone. And there's 2 mirrors in the shot. So you can see me in both of them. So like they're at a 90-degree angle. So there's like a larger mirror meeting a smaller mirror on the wall next to it. And then if you look to the right of the frame, Marley is reflected in like the smaller mirror, but like when the smaller mirror is in the big mirror, you see me again. And so Marley's hanging up a towel, wearing the shower fit, the mask. And you can also see, because the mirrors are in front of a counter, you can see a little bit of the stuff that's on the counter. And then in the second image, it's just one mirror, but we did put them on the same slide for a mirror theme. But it's a vanity in my bedroom. You can see some candles, some doilies that one of my grandmothers made. There's on the mirror a hat, an old hat up in the corner, and then there's a little embroidery hoop that my friend made of me. Cynthia, you can follow Cynthia at Critically Enraged on Instagram if your embroidery needs, and it's me in my chair with like flowers blooming out the back wheel and like up the back of my chair. It says blooming, and then in the mirror of the vanity, you can see me lying in bed with my arm up. You can see my urinal and my CPAP on the nightstand. If you look closely, and the walls in my bedroom are like teal, so that's the kind of background color of this photo. Marley,
Maybe
what?
you were right when you said that that first mirror image was going to be really hard to describe because it's a very like complex image. There's just a lot of mirrors happening in it, which is why I really liked it.
Yeah.
Each mirror is like its own framing of a different little moment that's going on, and I think that's something we try to capture quite a lot with the photos was how many little practices are kind of like happening simultaneously. There's this really big, like we call it our panoramic photo that we also have in Tangled vitrines, which we haven't shown here, that is called Toilet Time Break Time. And it's like one view of the bathroom door with Kennedy's like just her legs showing and like dangling off the edge of the toilet. And then while Kennedy's on the toilet, I would go into the next room and like eat some food or like do some cleaning or honestly just chill and like read a book. And in the photo, you can see a wall dividing, and then you can see the next room on the other side where I'm chilling and I'm reading a book. And I think we wanted to capture again the different like roles that we play in the care work and like the different things that are going on all at once. It's maybe some people think it's like it's easy, but there's definitely a flow to it that it takes time to really get into. And yeah, this photo is a little chaotic, but I like it. I think it is very representative of how it feels to be in a care shift. Sometimes it's messy. I'm like trying to get past you in the door. There's like things hanging down. The sling is like moving around. Like it's just there's a little chaos to it sometimes. But then there's also just these moments of like peace that you see in this other photo on the right. where it's quiet, it's early in the morning or it's late at night. You're trying to get like the pillow positioning just perfect, and it's very small movements. It's very like exact science. And then there are times in the bathroom when you're just like swinging around and it's like a mess. And like, I don't know, just kind of showing all the different moments of like peace and chaos that come with it, and the beauty in both of those things, and like the struggles in both of those things as well. So these are two photos, yeah, that we've never showed anywhere. We had such a vision for that vanity shot in the bedroom, and it just, I don't think we could get it exactly how we wanted to, but I think we still love what we were aiming at there. And looking back at it now, it's this very like quiet, quaint moment.
Yeah, if anyone needs clarification on the image descriptions, feel free to let us know in the chat. But yeah, I think that's interesting what you say about like peaceful times and more chaotic times, and like I'm thinking about like how the state times everything. Like we have a certain number of hours to do everything, and how you'll like eventually like fall into this routine that still allows for like some downtimes or like moments of a deep breath. And yeah, like the way the state does or doesn't care for care workers affecting how y'all can like show up. Like I try not to rush people because I think it just makes it worse. Like but there's always that like looming awareness about like how much you have to do and how much time you have to do it, and like the pressure of my needs on you guys and all that.
Yeah, and it
But
might be interesting to explain a little bit. I don't know how the home care systems in Canada work, but in the US, like basically when you apply, they come out and they do a whole analysis on you, and then they deem how many hours they're gonna give you for your care. And like if you're like, hey, no, that's not enough, they're like, sucks, work with it. So as like a care worker, and you know, as like the person that's receiving the services, you're very aware of that time constraint, and there's always an awareness of like, there may be days when we go over that time, and when essentially like the care workers are working unpaid. But it's like it's a necessity. I mean, sometimes you literally just can't get it all done in the time that they give you. And I wonder, you might have more to add to that, but I also think our next photos might be kind of interesting in speaking to that with the cat. Should
go
I
for it.
go, or do you want to
Yeah.
speak on it?
No, go ahead.
Okay. These are also relatively unpublished images here.
Yeah, so Marley pulled some these cute photos with my cat. My cat is named Natalie Maines after the chick, formerly the Dixie Chicks. I grew up in Nebraska, so they were like my childhood faves. And she is a calico cat. In these images, she's fairly small. Just a kitten. But like not the smallest kitten you've ever seen. She's like growing. She got a little pink collar on. So in the first image, I'm laying on my side in bed, and there's some things like blankets in my phone and stuffed animals like scattered around. You can see like the windowsill, and then the cat's just like walking near my thigh. You can see my butt and my back folds and my legs. And like I'm wearing a mask in bed in this one, so there were times when I wasn't eating or drinking or showering, I would also mask to keep us all safe. Unfortunately, that's still happening 4 years in. depending on folks' exposure and things, and my own exposure and symptoms and all that. But I think all the shots we took, we had cloth masks on because like the N95s weren't as necessary yet. So in
And
the
or we couldn't get them. Yeah.
in the lower image, Marley's, I'm in the close-up of my knee in bed, and Marley has her hand on my knee. You can see some of her tattoos and the tattoo on my thigh, which is like a little lyric. And Natalie is like the cat is like is laying next to my leg and like mimicking Marley by like putting her paw like on my leg too, near Marley's hand.
We were doing the morning stretches.
Okay, yeah. So we're just like rotating my hip joint. But Natalie's helping out. And then in the third photo, I'm on the toilet in the lift, in the sling. And there's this like box that like holds the lift batteries and stuff above my head. And Natalie is standing on top of it. She likes to get high and she's licking her paw. And you can see the shower in the back, and you can see a bit of the countertop next to me and my phone in my hand.
So the story kind of behind these, and I actually started off in this draft with 2 slides full of cat photos because that's how many cat photos we do have. The story behind this was somewhere midway through us shooting this project, Kennedy got a cat. Like it was the pandemic. We were all low-key lonely. We literally saw like 3 people all total for like a year. So Kennedy got a cat. Um, and it was so entertaining. Honestly, like the way that Natalie was always kind of like up in our business, like curious about everything we were doing with the care shift. Everywhere we transferred you, she wanted to be. Like I said, she was helping out with the stretches. And it was really, honestly, there were times obviously where I was like, Natalie, you're being a bad cat. But it was really kind of entertaining in the midst of so much, I guess, like monotony. Um, and like isolation. And it's an interesting example of some of the flaws of the care system, the state-funded home care system, and some of the rules that they place on you. So anything, like I was saying earlier, how they allocate how many hours they deem that you're worthy of, they also tell you what exact services you can perform as a care worker as well, and certain things that are not on that service list are technically fraud. So like Kennedy, what are like if I was to like brush and clip the cat's nails, that's fraud in America if I'm like on the clock because it's not a part of the service plan. And even though it's a part of life, I mean, you have a pet and it has to get taken care of, and only so much time in the day to do that. So
Yeah,
it became a little bit of a symbol of that.
any pet care, child care, if I wanted to have children, driving me anywhere, travel time, none of that is covered. I have what's called a service plan about like what care workers are allowed to help with. Just nothing very fun.
Yeah, quite stringent. And there's just a lot of parts of daily life that are not included on the care plan. That's like, okay, but in order to like take good care of a person, these things just need to get done. So you're always kind of butting up against that, plus like the time limit. There's always more things to realistically do than they allow you to do. And there's more things to realistically do than you have time to do. So everyone's doing a little more than what they should be doing or they can be doing or they're being paid to be doing, or and so we're all just very aware of that. And I can see, I think we had a really healthy relationship around that, but I can see the ways that that could create a lot of tensions in maintaining high quality care workers over time.
Yeah, backtracking on what you were saying about the cat as entertainment. I remember posing to another care worker. I was like, what did we talk about before we talked about the cat? So it still wasn't like everyone's going out doing whatever right away when I got her. Not that we're doing that now, but like hot back summer was a moment. And one of the other care workers was like, I think Trump. And I was like, oh yeah, this is so much better than just like ranting about politics all the time. So yeah, Natalie's famous among the care workers. I would say she's more high maintenance than me, but debatable probably. But yeah, if unless Marley, you have more, we'd love to like hear what questions folks have.
Yeah, we'd love to open it up. I'm happy to go back to any photos that people want to look at it while we're chatting or whatever, but maybe for now we can just chat like this. Like, I also haven't looked at the chat, so I'm curious what
Yeah,
people have been saying.
I wrote down some of the questions from chat for you, and also thank you for like talking so much about the history of the project and I was seeing like the things you were talking about with like pet care and childcare. It's just like it feels like such an intentional, it feels like eugenics and such an intentional way to like make sure like, oh, you disabled people, how dare you have meaning? But yeah, there were some questions in the chat. People were quite excited when the cat came up, it seems. Um, but one of the first questions by Evan, they asked, how did you take photos? Were they timed shots?
Yeah, so we like I said, first we kind of had like a meeting outside of our care shift, just like on our own time, where we sat down and really talked about like what are some images that we really think we want to capture? Like, let's walk through kind of visually our day to day and what are those moments that we think would be good to capture. And we wrote down a shot list and some ideas. And then little by little, I think, before a care shift, we would text like, hey, it's the night shift. Do you think we have time or energy tonight to do one of our shots like in the shower? Or is this a day we have more time, less time? Can we do one of our heavy lift shoots? Can we do something just like low key? Do we just want to not shoot anything tonight? And then I think we would probably do like 1 or 2 shots per shift or so for a couple months. So we would have an idea of what we wanted to shoot already. So I would bring my camera and my tripod, and I had the tripod on a 10-second self timer. So we would set up the shot. I'd usually take a picture, show Kennedy. Kennedy would give feedback as to like how we might want to move the camera around. And then if I was in the photo, I would set up the shot. I would go run, do my pose, go look, see if the pose looked right, maybe adjust, do it again. So there were times when we, like, for example, the main shower shot where I'm like, holding Kennedy's arm up, that like central one that we showed earlier, I think we took like 40 or 50 images with different poses, different tries. There's a couple where I'm standing off to the side and I'm holding the cat. There's some where Kennedy's like looking up at me that we didn't end up using because it felt very much like, oh, I'm looking up at my savior care worker and she's looking down on me. And so we settled, or not settled, but we decided on the final shot of Kennedy looking straight at the camera with kind of this like, I don't know, this intense look on their face that we just felt was the image that, I don't know, said it the best. And do you want to talk on like why we decided on certain images over others?
Yeah, I forgot to image describe in that center shower shot that's in the show. It's my full body. Marley's washing my armpit. I'm looking directly at the camera and think when we like write formal image descriptions for galleries, we say that I'm giving like a sharp look or something. I'm pretty sure this was shot before the vaccine, but like the energy remains. Like I will candidly describe the look as like, you bitches left me to die. And whoever else, right? Like not just me, but like, and yeah, I mean, I think I was angrier in that moment. I mean, I don't know. I think I'm trying to be more like less shamey and more inviting into the work these days. That just feels necessary. But like I also want to validate anyone who's not there. Because like in that photo, that was not where I was at. And so yeah, so that's kind of what we settled on. And I think that's why we use that shot a lot, and it's our favorite because it's got an edge to it. But then we always the one next to it where I'm smiling, people always tell us is like their favorite photo, and like not the one where I'm like staring you down. But yeah, yeah, that was sort of the process for like I said, I hadn't done photo before, but like and people get kind of confused about my role in the project. But it was very like I very much felt like a creative director, even if I don't have like a big photo background. Which
Well, and
is
I felt like it just reflected the way we already worked together, which was you're my boss
yeah.
and you're the one who trained me and you're the one who like tells me what to do. I mean, you're like, hey, move this a little bit. Can you move that? Can you grab that? Like Kennedy's directing me. I'm just like the hands and feet or whatever. And that's pretty much translated straight into the photo taking process. I think it was pretty natural for us because that's already how we were working together. So there was a lot of people that asked questions like, so this is like Marley posed Kennedy and like decided on all this, and this is like Marley's photos because Marley's the photographer. And I was like, no, I mean, I was again the hands and the feet, and like I had as many visual ideas as Kennedy did. But if we're in the midst of taking some photos and I, turn the camera around, show Kennedy the image on the back of the screen, and I'm like, what do you think about this? And he's like, for this one shoot we were doing with a haircut, we were doing a whole haircut shoot. And I just like could not get the angles right. I just thought all the photos I was taking were turning out like shit, honestly. And I showed a couple to Kennedy, and Kennedy was just like, what if you just put the camera literally like directly behind my head and like you're in front of me like shaving with the shaver, and like Kennedy like came up with the whole angle, the whole composition. Like I just put the camera there and it's not something I would have done on my own if Kennedy hadn't directed me to do it. So I started off putting the camera where I thought might be best, but we kind of edited and created together until we got the images we wanted. And then that continued. Once we felt like we've shot a lot of images, we sat down together, we went through all of them. We decided on which ones were conveying the themes we really wanted. You're sitting there looking at like, does the image where Kennedy's looking up at Marley look right? Or does the one where she's looking down at Marley look better? And why? What is this saying to an audience? What are the possible ways people could read this? So we were really intentional about choosing our images in the end. And we had a lot of images that flopped. Like we had some that I did not include in this presentation that they just flopped and they're not going to go anywhere, but they were all part of our process together.
Yeah, it was very collaborative, and I think it kind of took me aback the way people thought that like Marley was shooting it like without me involved, because it was like a very stark contrast to like my history as a poster child, or the way I'm treated in medical settings, or it was like a way to take back power from that kind of like representation or like gawking that I experienced.
Yeah. Are you ready for another question?
Yeah.
I believe this is about your care schedule, although Kathy, if you want to reiterate, it says, what can we do about Sundays?
Kathy, are you still here? Do you want to clarify?
And feel free to either clarify in the chat or if you want to get on the mic, that's okay too. I'm sure it feels like there is quite a spotlight.
We can also circle
Yeah,
back.
yep.
I know Kathy, she's a fierce Chicago disability organizer, but maybe she's in the bathroom or something.
Yeah, no worries. So I think I had a question and
From what I
oh,
understand, oh, I'm sorry.
no, go ahead, Kathy.
From what I understand, you can only get home care services from Monday through Saturday. And then like, well, what do? Just stay in bed all day on Sunday? It's ridiculous. What
Yeah.
are we going to do about that?
I see what you mean. So I have some friends who use agencies who have like even stricter hours. So I hire and train all my own caregivers, and I'm given 55 hours a week and I can decide how to use those. Care agencies, I think I think we gotta get rid of them. I've not met someone who's had any comprehensive, consistent care coming out of them, and they have salaries and staff and people whose job it is to coordinate that care who seem to kind of like shrug about it. It's really concerning. But if you know folks who want to switch to like managing their own care, we have a link tree with some resources, also on care collectives if you want to, which is even like divesting from the state more than I currently am, which is going to more like a volunteer base. And some people like do hybrids of those because that's also very hard. But yeah, and then like my email is on the last slide. So if folks want any like my flyer, my application, my interview questions, my training guide, like I'm always happy to share that stuff because it's silly for us to all like recreate those things. It's a lot of work. If you're asking for a specific person, Kathy, happy to chat more another time or now.
No, but it's a good topic to kind of illustrate the different care options, the very limited care options that are like available in the United States. So it's like if you can qualify for state funded services, there's a lot of restrictions on it. There's like risk to it. But then there's some autonomy to it. Like Kennedy said, like she gets to pick their own caregivers and train their own caregivers versus if you work through an agency, which is usually private pay, if I'm correct, Kennedy, or maybe not. Is going through a care agency private pay?
Like so sometimes people private pay agencies and sometimes the state pays agencies, but then you have to use like their depending on the state, there'll be like a set of agencies you have to use. Yeah, Kathy, no, I don't think it's fraud to get services on Sunday because we submit on my timesheets all the time the Sunday shifts, but I think that some people who opt into a certain agency, that agency will not provide care on Sundays or in the evenings, or whenever they feel like it, or say they can't get staff. They can't get staff because they're not paying the staff. So yeah.
Great. I think Kathy had another question, which was, do you think by collaborating together that this project has changed some of the art that you produce separately, like Marley through your photography and Kennedy through their writing. In what ways? Because it sounds like this was a new and different project than you both have done before.
That's a really good question. I haven't thought about it. Do you have thoughts, Marley?
Shout out my friend Katie for that question. Love you. Yes and no. I want to say for me, the biggest change was probably not the way I create work. I think I've always created work this way. Well before I worked for Kennedy, I was already doing a lot of photo video work for nonprofits and social justice topics. Like I worked for the Women's March. I worked for like a nonprofit that's called the Chicago Period Project that they collect like menstrual supplies for people in need. So I think I was always very much like aware that I'm going into someone else's situation with a camera in their face. And my intention, of course, is to do right by their story. But of course, many of us want to do right by people and we don't. So it does take a pretty thorough process to make sure that you are representing people properly. And part of that process is just like including all people involved at every level. I think it's just this basic mindset that they had to reiterate in a lot of my photo video programs a lot more than I sadly realized was necessary for a lot of people, was that you're not the owner, you're not the creator, you're not this like savior artist that's like going in and showing these people's fucked up lives and like you're the savior that's whatever, helping everyone by showing their story. I don't want any of the people in my photos or videos to feel like I'm like exploiting them or like I'm not representing them properly. Like, if someone told me that, I would be distraught. I mean, I would never want that. And to avoid that, I mean, you just include people in every step of the process. Like, when you have an outline for what you're thinking of doing, like you send it to them and say, give me your feedback, give me your edits. And then you take those edits, like you don't ignore them and say it's my way or the highway. And when you're in the midst of filming, like you let that person also lead to tell you what shots they think you should take. And, same with the editing process. As you're editing, it's great if you can build in times for that person to edit with you, or multiple people to edit with you. Like it's fully collaborative. Like I'm not the voice of the people or something. I have a skill set that I want to share with others, that I think is really meaningful and really powerful. I very much stand by visual storytelling as like an extremely powerful medium that can create immense change. I just think it can be really toxic when the creator has like an ego tied into it, or needs to own it or think that it's theirs. It's like these are real people in your story, and this is just as much theirs as it is yours. And your motivation shouldn't be that it's yours or that you're the storyteller, you're the person shining light on it. Like it should be about the person that's in the photos, that's in the video. So I think I've always been there. I honestly just think the biggest change in my life was unlearning ableism, which is a forever journey, and thinking maybe more purposefully with a disability perspective about power dynamics in wielding the camera. I mean, I think I would have said I considered that in the past, but would I have kneeled down and gotten on that person's level to take like an accurate portrait of someone in the past? Maybe not. But now I definitely think about like how to photograph people with disabilities in a way that's guided and led by the person with the disability and not myself, because I think your bias is going to show in that photo no matter how well intentioned you are if that person's not included in that creation.
Yeah, I don't think I've like thought about it until now. But I'm sure I don't know if the Zoom is picking up. There's like an ambulance outside my house. I'm sure that, so I'm writing a musical about care, and we started writing it in 2019, and then the pandemic hit, and now it's like getting real renty, like Rent the musical. And I'm sure that, well, first of all, my care workers and the way that they show up for me and the way that they talk about care with me has like definitely informed the musical. Especially the ones who like the work. Like I think Marley really genuinely enjoyed care work, which is not a role that's for everyone. And so I feel like the musical got like less funny. It's still comedy, but like much less funny when like this layer hit. And I think these like tender moments in our photos, I'm trying to like convey in this piece as well. It's sort of like a Love Actually. There's like 4 care workers and 4 disabled people, and like love triangles and stuff. Not triangles, like webs. And friendships, and yeah, and just like how these relationships like structure our lives. So yeah, I think people's reactions to the work like influences how I make more work, and I try to always make work for disabled people first, because I think it's going to teach non-disabled people better than work that's catered to them, because everything's catered to them. And so when like disabled people feel really seen by this project, like encourages me to keep going. And I think yeah, like might shape how, because like I didn't have that framework when I started the musical, so now I'm like trying to when I'm writing it, I'm like, who am I writing this for? Like scene by scene. So I think too, Marley, was interesting to watch you like learn about accessibility, and I think you like incorporate it all the time now without even know, like maybe not even that consciously. Because like we've partnered with different outlets and galleries, and we're like, is this image description like too poetic or poetic enough, and like all those nuances.
Another thing I don't know if you want to touch on this, but did the photo project have any influence in the creation of Crip Crap? I'll say a little moment. Basically, as this was going on, Kennedy was like coming up with this idea for like this disability media company. That this was happening for a while prior to this project as well, but it kind of came to fruition post the photo project. And I wonder if that experience with some visual media like kind of boosted your confidence or made you feel more like whatever about using Crip Crap as a means to like do better disability representation. Or
I mean, yeah, I think the ideas kind of formed in tandem. I got really interested in like reaching a lot of people, because I was like in the early pandemic, it was like flatten the curve, protect the most vulnerable, and then like no one's talking to the most vulnerable, and that's why we're so easy to like discard to them. But yeah, I think the way the photos project has taken off, and like the people we've gotten to work with, Tangled and Alice Wong, and has definitely, I mean, it's like helpful to like for people to see our stuff. But like I was saying about like people's reactions at our first show, I wasn't there, but they told us that someone came into the room with our work in it and immediately started sobbing because like they hadn't seen, like this was a part of their life and they had never seen it. Like it's stuff like that like, yeah, will just like keep you going on a creative path. And yeah, like connecting with audiences like you all. So
Great. So it's 7:20 now. I'm thinking we're kind of reaching the end of this lovely, fantastic artist talk. If anyone has any last minute questions, like feel free to throw them in the chat. But I really just wanted to thank you both like for this talk, but also being a part of our retreats, connecting over the border. It's really been such a pleasure. Um, and like I said, everyone, the vitrine exhibition goes on till January 26th. So definitely like either come in person or if you don't if you can't or you're abroad, we can take you digitally through it. They printed the photos in these big like bigger than me photos that are just so beautiful to look at. So I highly recommend it. I am kind of laughing at what you were saying, Kennedy. It's like you read my mind when you were talking about how you were making the photos because every time I've given a tour, the one where you're toweling your face, I was like, oh, I love that one so much. But I really love that main stage photo, the center stage photo you were discussing where you're looking at the camera. Being autistic, I think like a well-timed moment of eye contact can be really life-changing. So, but yeah, I just want to thank you both so much. This was so awesome. Um, and definitely I'm gonna repaste their websites and social media. Everyone check them out. The last question I had actually was like, I want to know like what's next for you two. I know it's always a complicated question when like the world is like burning. But kind of what do you and if you don't have like a project in line, like what are you kind of looking forward to? And it is the new year now, they say. So
I've been trying to move to Atlanta for a year. Main barrier being care, shockingly. I'm sarcasm. It's not shocking at all. Moving state to state, the US, each state has its own care system. There's no real, it's like funded through federal. No, Medicaid is state. Medicare. It's
who
like
knows?
each state gets different amounts of federal funding, but you apply for services in each state. So it's very complicated to like move state to state. I don't know what like in Canada, but I'm interested in like TV and film stuff out there. Working on like a comedy. I have a comedy pilot, the musical, couple children's books. I just like I have to like finish those before I have like a list of things I want to write, but I'm trying to finish things. But yeah, so in Crip Crap, we have a blog and a podcast, and we offer consulting services. So if that's helpful to anyone or you want to partner on something, we just put website, emails, and Instagrams in the chat. I feel like there was something else I was going to say, but yeah, we're a young company, so we love to talk with folks about the potential ways to partner or like cross post, promote things. And the blog is like about media representation specifically. I haven't put out the post yet, but like we take pitches from writers. So if you're a writer and you're interested in that, let us know.
Yeah, anyway, Kennedy is your classic overachieving trope. She's always doing a million things. You just seem like you have a million irons in the fire at all times.
Too much.
Constantly impressed. I don't really know what's next for our care projects. After the book release, I think that's gonna be kind of like our I don't know what the right word is for that, but that's like kind of our big moment. And then we haven't really been actively like submitting some more stuff. We may like after that, we may kind of revisit and see.
Tangle Art Plus Disability logo. On the right is a pink continuous squiggly line. On the left, the word tangled is in bold, sans serif pink text. And the words Art Plus Disability are underneath in thinner, sans serif black text. The text is left justified.